Hello? Is anybody out there? Can you hear me? Welcome to V100 TV. Real conversations with real people. All of this has been an evolution. Nothing about this journey is how I thought it was going to be. You know, shout out to the Free Game Society, man. Shout out to everybody, Team 100. Shout out to everybody that just keeps rocking, that understands what's going on here. We're just trying to make changes without compromising the truth, right? We're not up here just for the views. We're here for the impact.
Incredible story of redemption for a man who served more than a decade in prison.
Well, now he's the principal at a cosmetology school in Tucker, proving that no matter what your past is, you are in charge of your future. Atlanta News First, Sawyer Bussey picks up his story from there.
I was 19. Prior to that, good grades. I was actually active duty United States Air Force.
If you're a person who believes that your past defines you, this story is not for you.
I was the driver in a robbery.
If you're a person who believes that you can rewrite your future.
How much time did you serve?
16 years, 11 months.
Build a new dream.
I just wanted the atmosphere to be right for real people.
If you're a person who believes in redemption.
There's a bunch of us. We didn't let the system change us.
This story is for you.
But for me, I'm very passionate about the youth. That's who it's about.
Once Chris was released from prison, he married his wife. And the couple opened a cosmetology school called Lasting Layers of Beauty Institute.
I was the first esthetician student to graduate.
Right when you walk in the door, you're getting greeted as an individual.
Chris and his wife wanted to bring their students more than a cosmetology education. They wanted to bring in financial experts and other resources.
It's given me a dream, because before I got here, I didn't know what I wanted to do at all.
Some of the students do know Chris's story.
I felt I could relate more.
This building is where the stories of Chris and his wife intersect.
I never knew that this type of impact would be made.
It's not just me. There's countless individuals that are incarcerated that are educating, mentoring, leading, coming home, husbands, fathers, business owners. We just don't get talked about enough.
This is where they make space for students to start fresh, to define themselves.
They're actual living proof of how we can be in harder situations and not allow our circumstances or our surroundings to
Define us.
Absolutely.
And that was Sawyer Bussey report. And that was Sawyer Bussey reporting. Now, Chris's work, it doesn't stop at the cosmetology school. He actually started his first nonprofit while in prison. He advocates for prison reform and works with men and women who are wrongfully accused.
The National Weather Service confirming a tornado.
Peace, 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 peace to the planet Earth as we are dealing with technical difficulties on a Monday, but a Monday is still a good Monday for me nonetheless. Really quick, getting straight into it, guys. You know what we've been about since the beginning. I really don't want to hesitate. I simply played that news clip at the top, not to shout out the most awesomest, greatest school in the face of the planet Earth as far as I'm concerned, but to illustrate a point that's true. People can change. This is why it's important to get involved in laws and the legislation and the people that are getting these laws onto the floors and just getting involved with the people that are having conversations and understanding what's going on and getting the information so you can apply it. A lot of times, I think, me coming from the perspective of somebody that was incarcerated, a lot of times I would hear rumors more than facts. I would hear things about or messages of hope, as I would say. And a lot of times when the actual information got to us about the laws that were out on the General Assembly, we found out that we were getting a lot of misinformation. So we have examples of, not myself, but countless individuals that come home from behind those walls and show that they probably should have been home a little bit sooner, which is part of the reason why we're here today. We're also talking about the support that these men and women have, these juveniles that also have. All three of these ladies here, they not just represent an organization, Sistas in prison reform, but they also represent like a percentage of people that often don't get spoke about enough, and the support. Like a lot of the times, the mamas and the sisters and the wives and the girlfriends and the nieces and the ones that really stand by people when we're locked, they don't get talked about enough. So I'm excited to have, people that have been in the trenches with loved ones, people that they cared about, might still be, because I'm still learning about their story. I did as much research as I could. And Santia has already been up here before. But yeah, it's good to just have somebody, some more fighters up here, but not just fighters that are coming from the perspective of being passionate about something, but some people that have lived it. So that's my intro and spiel and my salute, you know what I'm saying? And my roses to you three, if you will, at the top of the hour, man. If you can you guys go ahead and just introduce yourselves and just really let everybody know who you are, what you guys are about, a little bit of background story, anything you guys want to get into. Floor is yours.
All right, so I think I'm the one that's not on mute, if you guys are okay with me starting. Okay, so I'm Juanita Belton. I'm actually from Boston. I'm in Boston. And I met the ladies. I've met Santia by Twitter, and I met Paulretta on Facebook, but with Santia and Paula, because they met at a rally. And at the time, I was advocating for my loved one. His name is Sincere. He was incarcerated in Virginia for 24 years. And so I went on, like, in the start, like this one woman advocacy show, and in the process got to meet Santia and Paula, who were also advocating for their fiance and their husband, who, like Sincere, had been serving 20 plus years behind bars already. And we felt that we needed to do something because at the time, or currently, Virginia doesn't have parole. And at the time, they didn't have any options at all for our guys to get out. And we thought that there was a group of people that were often neglected when legislation came through, because everyone has this fear of people who are convicted of violent crimes. They automatically assume people are violent. And so in that process, we created Sistas in Prison Reform. We wanted to bring awareness. We wanted to change the narrative that people have for people that are incarcerated with violent crimes. For me, my loved one is actually now home. He was granted a pardon in January of 2022. We'll be celebrating his anniversary on the 14th of this year. He's been out 1 year, been successful 1 year. So that's amazing. So that's me, and Santia and Paula can say hello.
Congrats on that too, on the 1 year. They say the 1 year is the hardest, but the first year wasn't the hardest for me. The third year was.
I'd like to hear about that.
So I'll go next. My name is Paulretta James, and I am in Virginia. I am advocating for my husband, who is serving, he's on his 23rd year this month. And as Juanita said, it's guys like him who have rehabilitated themselves, remained infraction free for 18 years, work his way down from a level 4 or 5 camp to a work camp, which he is at now, and still not be considered redeemed to be able to come home because of the offense. So, we want to educate people and show people that these individuals that are serving excessive sentences is not the ones that you need to be worried about letting into your community, because as we see, crime rates are continually on a steadfast rise and not changing. So long prison sentences and excessive prison sentences is not keeping our communities safe. It's only causing our families to be broken, children to be raised without their mother or their father in their life, and continuing a generational curse among those, legacies that are left behind with no one to mentor them and no one to be there for them. So that is why I am in this doing advocacy, and I am glad to be aside two wonderful ladies who have been like rocks in this fight of trying to change the narrative, trying to change the mindset, and more than anything, trying to change the hearts of people who don't understand how damaging excessive sentences can be.
Right. And I want to say thank you. I started advocacy on accident, fighting for my brother, Jefferson Ellie, still trying to bring him home. And what I think, man, it's kind of hard, but it's a blessing at the same time. Trying to help him, still trying to get him home. We've been able to help other people, and now in different states. And so salute to you, man. I definitely see you. That's what I'm
And
gonna
I
say.
forgot to tell you, I also married my husband while incarcerated, who I met through my son.
Me and my wife, we love it. We love to have conversations and talk to people about, because I tell you what, woo. But anyways, that's all I'm gonna say. But at the same time, when it works, ain't nothing better, because you've been through something that a lot of people can't make it through, and that's my partner. So y'all got something. Keep going.
This is year 6 for us.
Okay, salute. That's what's up.
Yeah, it ain't easy. Y'all may or may not know me. I'm Santia. Like Christopher said, I was here. What was that? 2 months ago. But definitely wanted to come back and definitely wanted to make sure that y'all got to hear my sisters, Juanita and Paulretta, because I do think that their perspectives are even completely different than mine, even though we have a similar one and we have a similar fight. My loved one is incarcerated. His name is Q Patterson at Lawrenceville Correctional, and he has been behind bars for over 14 years now, convicted of a violent crime, as they say, the violent crime. So we definitely want to change the hearts and minds of the public, but I also think that one of the things we learned really, really quickly in this advocacy journey was that it is about the hearts and the minds, but also it's the law that allows these things to happen, these excessive sentences and the different statutes and different code in Virginia that allows for this to happen. Because you start to look at, all the paperwork and all the sentences and the court paperwork, and you're like, there's no way. Like, there's no way that these things add up like this. And I do think that what people don't realize is there is a way, and that's the law. And so I do think that one of the things that we've really tried to do is wrap our heads around and really go at understanding the ins and outs of how, laws get made and how we need to change those in order to make a difference in the system, alongside changing the hearts and minds of those who do not understand what the experience is. I think one of the things that the three of us really strive to do is talk about our loved ones. And we have since day one. It's like, you all need to know these are people, these are amazing people, that have been, doing the work to show that they should no longer be behind bars and that they could be more productive members of society now and are completely different people than they were 15, 25 years ago. Like I'm way different now than I was 5 years ago. I don't know about y'all, but that's definitely something that's super important to us. So
yeah, I think there is a lot of times what goes on is there's no communication, there's no voice, right? I can speak from my own. I opened a school. I don't, I haven't been in trouble, still on probation. I haven't talked to a probation officer in 2 years. I haven't met my probation officer in 2 years. Don't know who they are. I'm in this weird limbo because 2 states aren't communicating, right? But I'm also thinking about the fact that a lot of times people don't know the stories to the guys that are incarcerated from the inside too. Like you just said, it's not because a lot of guys that listen to this, they're on probation. They're like, yo, people don't know what's going on. We're lost in translation. Same thing goes on with people that are incarcerated. There's a breakdown. There's a situation going on in Lawrenceville right now, correctional center, that's ridiculous. My brother's up there, and it's like I think they're on lock and they're off lock. I don't know what the heck's going on, and I just know that the powers that be are looking at it like it's these guys. I'm not saying but come on, guys. We have to start looking at things. Either lock the prison down 1,000 times, and the same rule applies to people. At some point, we got to look at people differently. And while I was on St. Bride's, we were given the opportunity to invite, at the time, the chair and vice chair of the parole board in while we did a seminar. It was Karen Brown and Algie Howell at the time. And all these guys that had been going up for parole for all these years signed up for this seminar. There must have been 200 people in this seminar. And the whole reason I wanted to get them in there is so I wanted them to see guys' faces and know that they were people. And I don't know if it was timing, I don't know, whatever it was, but sure enough, Algie Howe ended up coming back a couple times for a Black History program. And then sure enough, after that, a bunch of guys started making parole. I don't know, what, but I have to believe it went from a name going across the desk to now, oh, that's such and such. I've seen his name come by 20 times. So how important is it when we look at advocacy? Because I know you guys are going to go all the way in on this. How important is it to be the voice? And then what does it take to be a voice? Because before we got up here, and I loved how you brought that up. We always chat before we get up here. Really, you said you really want to tell people about what it takes, or the evolution, the process, because it takes a lot and it's a selfless thing to do. But how important is it?
You know what? I'm glad you're asking that question, because after Santia finished, I wanted to say that one of the things we like to do is make people realize that that you can be essentially a housewife or just a working person, have no experience in legislation, and get out here and do advocacy. Like, we want people to feel empowered to speak to lawmakers, to get on your social media platform, to talk about your story. And so, yeah, that's what I wanted to say. Sorry, I lost my train of thought after that.
And I will also add that, not only is it important for you to be their voice, and, none of us have a degree. Well, I have an associate's in criminal justice, but really none of us have a degree in doing advocacy or prison reform. It's just that we saw a need. We saw a system that was racially disparate and that was unjust to our loved ones. And we stepped up and we took the time to research, to look at what other states were doing on both federal and state level, and came up with, how to connect with national organizations. But it's important for you to do that, because a lot of these men and women that are behind bars have been gone for such a long time. Their family members have died off. So they have no one else who is going to be a voice for them. They have no one else who can, talk to lawmakers and legislators and push for them to come home. And as you know, the problem with parole in Virginia is oftentimes you get denied for the nature of the offense.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't care if that person has spent 50 years in prison, the nature of the offense is never going to change. So what you're saying in essence is you don't have any plans on letting this individual out. So we've got to stop using that as an excuse to deny individuals who have been rehabilitated to come home to be with their families. And another thing that we do is we push for our legislators to go and see them, because how can you sit behind a desk and in front of, these committees that you're on and make these decisions on individuals that you don't even know their story. You don't even know who they are. Like, we need you to put a face to these people that you are legislating for, that you say are your constituents and whose families live in your districts. You need to know that these people are essential to their community. They may not mean anything to you, but they mean everything to us.
So, you know what? I want to give a shout out. Paula just hit something on the nail that's very important about legislators visiting. I want to give a shout out to Senator Jennifer Boysko. and Delegate Irene Shin, who are two individuals who went to prisons. They went to Sussex, they went to Lawrenceville, they went to Nottoway. And me personally, I built a relationship with Senator Boysko because I reached out to her regarding Sincere. And she had never gone to had never met anyone that was incarcerated. And as we started to go through the legislation, we realized that a lot of them have never met anyone that's ever incarcerated. But what I appreciated is that she took the time to not only talk to him on the phone for an hour, but then she went to visit him. And she created and had him create a round table with 5 guys that he picked. So it was 6 of them total. And they had a conversation with just her in the room. She went to Lawrenceville. She met Q and some guys, the same thing. She went to Deerfield at the time where Jerry was. She did the same thing and got to meet people and put names and faces and stories to people that she could talk about in the media. And I thought that was pretty dope because, you know, she understood, took the time to understand their stories and realize that like these people are not just people that like, oh, they were convicted of murder or convicted of robbery or whatever, but these are people that had lives. They had different obstacles that they had to face that may have put them into prison, but that wasn't just the end of their story, and that they were in prison. They're writers. Q and Santia have a website that allows people who are incarcerated to write their stories, poems, whatever. Like, she put faces and names to people, and I give her props for that because nobody else has done that.
That's fire.
To that
That's
extent.
Yeah, that's amazing. Hey, salute again for helping the faces behind the names get out there, humanizing people and not just making them numbers, which a lot of times that's what it boils down to. And then salute to the politician. And you do have people within the system that are trying to make change. I think one of the awkward moments behind the part 2 of the story is when those guys started making parole after they came into the institution, we didn't see those two as chair and vice chair much longer. And I'm not sure what the reasons were. Yeah. But I always want to take the time to salute those within the system, whether it's a correctional officer, a counselor, because we see y'all. I've been around some real ones as well as lawmakers. We've had some come into St. Bride's and stuff too. So definitely salute to that. I wanted to ask a question because guys were hitting me earlier in Messenger, and we can come back to anything you guys want, but I know if I don't get into it, they're gonna fuss me out. General Assembly, what are the hot topics, the need to knows? What are some simple ways to get involved, like get into because there's a lot of talk. And some of it I heard, I'm like, okay. And then I get up there and I get on the website, VA or VA.gov, whatever it is. And I'm like, well, I can't find that information there. But then some of it I can. But I know you guys can. You about to give it all up. So what do we need to know for 2023 General Assembly? What changes can we help cause to get some of our loved ones home?
There's a lot. That's a very big question, first of all. Second of all, there's still a little bit of time for some of the bills to go through. So you'll see that there's the General Assembly starts on Wednesday, and typically they can put bills in for a little while after that date. I don't know exactly when that is, but you definitely won't see everything that has been talked about. A lot of times part of the strategy is even to wait before they go up there. Sometimes things are still getting negotiated. Sometimes lawmakers are still getting involved with specific legislation. Sometimes code is being so a lot of things are still happening. But I also want to say that there are a lot of things going on this session. So last year was interesting. The year before that was interesting. And the year before that was interesting. And every year kind of has its nuggets, if you will. I do think this year is an interesting one because it's an election year. And, the legislators are definitely going to be looking for ways they can push the boundaries of like showing how they support things. And also they're going to be thinking about winning their seat again. So I do think that there's a lot to think about when it comes to how people are going to vote and how we can move things through the General Assembly. So I know that a lot of legislators are being very, very smart about, okay, is this bill, like specific issues, is this something that's going to make it? Is this something that I need to put, you know, through the entire process, knowing that I'm not going to have the support that I need in order for it to go through. So there's a lot of thought process about what you're going to see and what you might not see. So I do think continuing to ask those questions and talk to your legislators and some of the lawmakers that are involved in our issues specifically, because if somebody asked me about an education bill, I wouldn't be able to tell you. But when you start talking about prison reform specifically, usually I know at least what organization might be involved with prison reform and sometimes some of the more criminal justice reform issues in terms of trying to get people home, because I do think that like at the end of the day, that is the core of the Sistas in Prison reform. You know, we want to bring fairness back to the system and, you know, think about the ways that, you know, violent crime is being talked about. Think about the ways that excessive sentences are happening and what the issues are in the law that are making that happen. But you'll start to hear, and we'll probably spend a lot of time talking about our bill, our baby, the Second Look bill, which is something that was introduced in 2022, something we've been working on for the entirety of Sistas in Prison reform. It's definitely been a big, huge priority for us. But that bill specifically is SB 842. I know Paula knows that number real well. 842. So if you go into the LIS system and you put in SB 842, you'll see the language of the bill that is presented to the General Assembly. And it is patroned by Chap Peterson, who is a senator. And then you'll also see that it's not going to be called Second Look. You'll see a bunch of legal language that I'm personally, I'll be reading. I'm like, luckily, I know this bill from top to bottom, but a lot of times it's hard to follow the language. But I do think the nuts and bolts are pretty simple. And I know everybody here, we want to talk about it, but I'll quickly just throw out that 2023 Second Look is basically a reconsideration bill. So what people may or may not know is that in Virginia, you can only file like appeals and like try to do reconsideration before you go to the prison. So like if you go to prison, that's it. Your sentence is your sentence. You have to serve 85% of your time relatively. And then there's all the earned sentence credit stuff going on, which we could talk about as well if need be. But relatively, you have to serve 85% of your time. You can only earn 15% back on your sentence. So if the court hands you, you're 20 years old, the court hands you 20 years, you pretty much got to do 20 years.
That was I got 19 years at 19. So yeah.
But yeah, there's and this bill specifically would allow for people to petition the court after spending 15 years behind bars, and you'd be able to petition the court and it would go to the sentencing court that you got your sentence in, and then they would go through a hearing, look at everything you've done, and hopefully reduce or eliminate the rest of your sentence. So that's pretty much the gist of it. And I don't know if Paula or Juanita want to jump in on anything specific as well.
I'll let Paula jump in.
I was going to say one thing specific about the bill is we do not have any exclusions or carve-outs in our bill, so everyone is included. However, of course, as you know, as it moves through the General Assembly, we don't know what the lawmakers are going to do with the bill, but as it is written, and our push is that everyone who has served the 15 years would have the opportunity to have their cases reevaluated and to receive a second look.
I think what's important for people to understand is that once they petition, a judge is going to take a look at their case and a number of factors. So unlike parole, which, as we spoke earlier, looks at it and says, you know, the nature of the crime, a variable will never change, that will never change. In second look, the judge is looking at more than just the nature of the crime, because that nature of the crime was committed, you know, like Chris, you said, when you were 19 years old, you know what I mean? So if someone is at trying to apply for second look at 40, the nature of the crime doesn't really apply to what Second Look is about, which is giving someone a second chance based on growth and development. So they'll be looking at the educational programs that someone has taken, their work history, behavior, right? Because behavior for some is they act like behavior is a telltale sign of how you'll behave on the outside. Though we know that it's not necessarily, because the environments are different, but behavior is very important. And, through your whole incarceration. And so it's not weighing in on just that beginning where obviously there's some growing pains. Just like in life, there's growing pains to anything new that we do, and then you kind of get it and you're doing well. The victim can also has a role. They are able to make a victim impact statement. But again, unlike parole, where a victim impact statement can, cause a person to not get parole like at all and weigh extremely heavy, it can't weigh heavy here. And then also, too, if a judge denies a person, that judge has to write why they've denied the person. Parole doesn't have to do anything. But we have it so that the judge can write why and weigh why they denied that person. So at least someone knows that, they can go back and take this class or do this or do that. The other thing is it is going to be in the jurisdiction where the person was convicted. And so someone asked in another podcast we did, what if that judge is retired? So the judge that's in place now would be the one that's looking over that. And so what we like to tell lawmakers, because obviously there's that narrative of just letting everybody out and run wild, is that it's not a guarantee, but it is an option for people. And it gives people hope and gives them something to work towards when they get inside. Because right now, there's nothing to work towards. And if you think about like being outside, when you're at a job, if there's no incentive, either you don't stay or you don't really do your job really well because there's no incentive. I would think that that's the same in prison. If there's no incentive to do well, then why am I going to?
And that's I wanted to chime in real quick before and pass it right back to you. You brought up a valid point. 20-year-old, you get 20 years, 85% of that, you're getting in trouble. You're going to fight. You're going to do something. Mm-hmm. That's how I look at my time. It's just, thankfully I had some sense, but man, that there's nothing to work towards. You're telling a 20-year-old, 21-year-old, well, young man, I still say kid, but young man, hey, if you don't go to school, I'm going to give you a 200 series charge and you're going to get an extra 15 days. Man, there has to be something to work towards. So I just wanted to say, very valid point. You guys get it.
And I was going to say, and I saw someone had asked, what does the Republican Second Look? We do not have a sponsor or a patron on the Republican side. We are only submitting this on the Senate side because what we discovered was last year when we did have a Republican patron to
in the House
submit a bill in the House, they didn't even docket it. They didn't even want to hear it. They refused to even consider it. So we're only submitting this on the Senate side of the legislation.
Yeah, and there is some support. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to throw in there that it passed through the Senate last year, which was awesome, and I think, and Juanita was probably going to allude to this too. In general, the idea and the concept is kind of one that, as a human, you can't say no to. You're saying that 15 years, okay, somebody's done 15 years, and they have a chance to go back to the court and see if they are in a place to where they could reduce their sentence or be like so. I do think in general, it's really hard to argue with the concept of giving people a shot at a second chance. And then also the bill itself does have a line in it that would allow you to go back to the court twice and say the first time you go up and it says, okay, well, you need to do this, and that before I can consider you. So what we really want to do is kind of try to bring that transparency and continue again to have people build up and earn that shot at a sentence reduction.
I think it's fair. If I would have had that shot, a shot at my freedom, I mean, I'm going to work for that. I think I'm going to do what I need to do and check the boxes. So
And
Yeah.
so also too with the judge, they cannot extend your sentence because that's always been a question. Like, can they make it longer? No, they can't make it longer, and they can either do probation, parole, or let you go completely, but they cannot make your sentences longer.
Absolutely.
Let me ask you guys this: support, terms of support, because I can't speak on how it is, post COVID and all that stuff. I just know while I was incarcerated, one of the things we have different organizations sometimes like VA Cure, RIHD, different organizations come in there, and a lot of times they spoke about how it was hard to get support. What are some ways we can support? Whether you're somebody like me that lives in Georgia that has a loved one that's locked up in the Commonwealth of Virginia, or you're in the state, or you're in Japan on vacation. What are some ways we can support? Let's take the excuses away.
So, okay, so I'll use me because obviously I'm in Boston, and it was during the time of COVID. Actually, it was during the time of COVID where I started. I wrote Sincere's pardon. I had no clue what to do. I just went online. I looked up the pardon application. I was like, okay, well, what do you need? I joined Twitter. I got on Twitter and I was asking, like, okay, has anyone ever written a pardon one? And then is anyone who can help me with the Virginia pardon? And I got some hits. I got a couple of people that actually helped me start to put it all together and what I needed. And then in the process, because you couldn't be in person at the time, I literally was emailing all lawmakers about him. I went to the Virginia Black Caucus lawmakers. I wrote them letters. I wrote Senator Boysko a letter. And it's interesting because specifically with her, I never really asked for anything. I just wanted her to get to know him. And then I would have meetings with people. Zoom was like my best friend because I wasn't there, but it just seemed like the perfect storm. And then on top of that, when it came down to being at the actual General Assembly, because you could do it by Zoom at the time, I would go on and speak about the fact that there needed to be changes. At the time, people were pushing for parole in 2020. And so I would get on and speak from here about it. And then once we all met, we just went full force with it because a lot of things were on Zoom. The other thing is I'm not a constituent, clearly. But I didn't let that stop me. And believe me, there were a lot of like unanswered emails, a lot of no responses. But then I got a lot of people who did. And at the time, there was also, because of COVID, there was a program that was trying to help individuals do their pardons who had risk factors for complications to COVID, whether it was like diabetes, asthma, etc. And so I contacted them on Twitter, and I just kept hounding. Like I was in their DMs hounding. And at one point, they contacted me. I submitted his stuff. A lawyer took his stuff on and pro bono, and they, that helped. So, there were many challenges, but I did it. And then I'd fly. They'll tell you I'm a fly in a second. I'm coming to Virginia, and everybody can't. She laughs because I'm coming this weekend.
On this plane.
But I will get on a plane or something and go and have a conversation. But a lot of just, wherever your loved one is, like in the prison where they're at, you can go online and look up what senator and what delegate is in that district. And then you can send them emails and then pick people that are on, the different subcommittees that do criminal justice reform. Send them emails. Somebody at some point is going to get back to you. And the other thing we did, Families Against Mandatory Minimums, A1 organization. Let me tell you something. They allowed us to tell our stories of our loved ones, which allowed us another way of having a platform to have the conversation about our loved ones. So it's doable. It's hard, but it's doable.
I was going to say that. I was going to say, like, hearing Juanita talk about it, like that's years of work that had to be done. And you're going to get a lot of either no's or you're not going to get anything. So like really, it's all about persistence. Like the first email, you're not going to get a response to the first email. You're not. But like, I do think joining Twitter is really important. And I think I told you to join Twitter, Christopher. I was like,
yeah, I'm starting getting up there more and more. I made some connections on Twitter.
See,
I'm a
that's
Twitter
the key.
beast.
Like Twitter is where we are. And when I say we, I mean the advocate community. Because I do think that it allows you to have a platform that gets seen in a different way than it would on a Facebook. Now, Facebook is really great for building a community and for having people to talk to that are going through something similar that you are. But Twitter is a place for your voice to be heard, if that makes sense. And you kind of create your platform with Twitter. And I definitely agree with who's my legislator. I'd written that down. And I can post a link in the comments too, so that people could go find out who their legislator is. But what's hard is it asks you for an address. So if you're not in the state, the best way to do that is to use your loved one's facility's address and contact those legislators. Because at the end of the day, you can say, either those legislators, and I'll let Paula talk about this too, because I know that she's actually been in contact with JJ's legislators and like has been up their backs being like, hey, my loved one is a real constituent. Like, it's really about trying to find your way in wherever possible. And Twitter is one of those ways.
And my sisters would tell you, my motto is, if they don't invite you to the table, you invite yourself and make a seat. Don't wait for somebody to come and say, hey, come join. No, you invite yourself to the table. And, if they won't take your phone call, I've driven down to Virginia Beach. My husband's family is down in Virginia Beach area, and their senator wouldn't return emails or phone calls. I got in my car. I drove down to Virginia Beach. I picked his dad up and we drove over to his office and was like, knock, knock, knock. Here we are. You can't wait for somebody to invite you. You invite yourself and you make a space for yourself. And, that is what we did. And that's kind of why, we are where we are today, because we don't take no as a definitive answer. No is just on your side. That don't mean that I'm saying no.
And can I just say something that's very important as an advocate? Because as much as we're saying go, 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 we'll tell you, the three of us cried last year at the General Assembly when our bill, was killed in the House. I mean, we were happy that it got through the Senate and got to the House. But we cry. Like, you have moments that you just want to take a step back and say, hold on. Because every time after the General Assembly that it's over, we take a break for like a month or two because it's taxing. So as an advocate, we also recommend that people take some time for themselves to keep, because if you're doing this for so long, you get tired and you get frustrated and you want to stop, and it's easy to stop. But self-care is also important in this process. Like, you're taking care of your loved one that's inside, but self-care is also very important in this process.
Question. Self-care. I find it, I'm gonna find this is what I found out, right? Now, I did have some people that fought with me the whole way, every step of the way. I can honestly say that. But for a lot of guys, they did not. And I think one of the hardest, I guess, truths is there's a lot of people that say they want their loved ones home, but they don't put forth the effort. And I just want to be the one that says that. And I want to say, again, salute to you guys, because I know, and I just want to be the one that the guy that used to be locked up, so I can say it. I know that you're fighting for a lot of people that could have a lot more people fighting for them, which would not only take the weight off you guys that are already getting into certain places and rooms, but it also makes the movement more impactful. And the other thing, Paulretta, you said that it basically to me is networking. I moved to Atlanta. Me and my wife, we moved to Atlanta because we knew we wanted to be entrepreneurs, and the same rule applies whether in business, whether any goal. You can literally network your way to a goal. Somebody knows somebody. You can nurture and cultivate some relationship here that will lead you here. it's just a lot of times people don't want to put forth that they don't want to take the 14 no's. They don't want the 17 phone calls that you're trying to make on your lunch break and eat your sandwich because you ain't got no time when you get off work. You got 17 things to do. You know, I just think 2023 is a time where there's a lot of things changing. Social media is getting a lot more information out there. It's taking away excuses. So I just want to encourage anybody that's watching this in the right way, with all the most respect, man. Now is the time to put a little bit more effort to really get past the point of just talking about it and doing about it, especially when there's people that don't know your loved ones that are fighting for them. And all you guys got to do is shoot an email, make some calls. Time's now.
So Santia just put it in the chat, a good segue over to our lobby day that we have coming up. That is a way to empower people to come out of their shells and come have conversations with lobbyists. I'm not lobbyists, with legislators, with other organizations, with us. So on January 17th from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m., starting at St. Paul's Episcopal Church in Richmond, Virginia, which is right next to the Pocahontas building. We will be having a lobby day. And what that will entail is we will be having people that come out and speak, someone that was formerly incarcerated, a loved one. We'll have some group members talking. And then what we'll do is we'll go into the General Assembly and have some conversations with different legislators. We'll break up into groups because it might be a bunch of us, but we'll break up into groups and have conversations where we can talk about the second look bill, have people talk about their loved ones, and give people an opportunity to see what that actually is like. About 5 of us did lobbying last year, and it was pretty fun. To go and watch how it's all done and then have conversations with lawmakers about our bill, and so that they could see our faces, put faces to this bill, and get some idea of what it is. So we are having everybody come. I think, and yeah, Santia put in the link there to RSVP. If you don't get to RSVP, let's say you have a flip phone and you can't RSVP, cool, show up. We need faces. Like, it's fine. There'll be breakfast, there'll be lunch, that always brings everybody out in case you're hungry. But I think it'll be a great event. There'll be t-shirts that you can wear with Second Look on it. And we'll just be having the conversation. And so it just gives people a moment to feel empowered that they can speak to legislators about Second Look and their loved ones. So please come out. And there'll be a training virtually. We don't have the link for that just yet, but the 15th at 7 p.m. virtually, there'll be a lobby day training, so you're not feeling like you're going out there on Tuesday the 17th like just in the wind. So we'll pass you that link on too as well once we get it. But that's sponsored by the ACLU Virginia. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. The ACLU Virginia, FAM, No Left Turns, Humanization Project, the SIP, and we have SARA, another organization that's coming. We're gonna be out there strong.
We're gonna be rolling deep, as the people say.
And I just wanted to say, with all that information, make sure you guys hit them up in the email, the sip2021@gmail.com. Yes. And just let them know if you're interested in Lobby Day, January 17th, you're ready to make a change, be heard, step up, be present in the moment. That's it, man. I wish I can pop up there at VA. January 17th. I'm gonna be home soon enough. There's a returning citizen award ceremony.
Oh, I went last year.
Yeah, I'm being honored there, so I'm excited about that. Yeah, so I'll be there. But salute to you guys, man. Lobby Day. We need more events. We need more. I call them epicenters where people can rally, get information, and then disperse again, get motivated. So I think that's amazing, man. And hopefully you get some people that got some bigger platforms, some of these artists, actors, people, whatever, start getting involved in these events, man. These grassroots events. We got some more comments. Everybody said congratulations, all that. So one of the questions somebody asked not here is how can you create, and I might be paraphrasing, I'm basically paraphrasing, so I hope I don't chop and screw it. How can somebody submit a law to be looked at or something to be looked at? What is the process like? How do you start that? Is there emails? What is it? Because somebody asked that earlier.
So, we knew nothing about writing a bill. Absolutely nothing. We had an idea. We had a thought process of what we wanted to be included. And we took it to, other advocates that was in this space that had success in getting a bill done. And they told us what we do. But pretty much, if you have an idea of a bill that you want to do, go to a lawmaker, talk to a lawmaker and let them know what you want to do. And if they're on board with it, what they'll do is they'll have their office set up and put together the language and the bill and all the legalities and fanatics of it. All you have to do is just have the idea and be able to encourage it enough for somebody to want to, pick it up and run with it.
We were fortunate enough to also have Justice Forward Virginia. Their lawyers, their group of lawyers who also fight for criminal justice reform, help with the bill as well. It was sort of like a play on Delegate Sia Price's bill, which was actually getting the remodification before someone left jail to go over to the DLC, but it failed. So it was a play on that, and then we just kind of extended it, and then their lawyers legalese it, as I call it, and we went over line by line, what we wanted, what we thought we needed in the bill, etc. And initially our bill had a behavioral criteria in it, but we took that out because people may remember it from last year. So I note that. And we took that out because we wanted more people to be eligible, but we also knew that on the back end, a judge is going to look at the behavior. So we didn't want to make it hard for people to be able to potentially come home. So yeah.
Yeah, and I was going to throw in on there, just thinking about the process that we had. I do think what's interesting about policy ideas is that if it is, I'm trying to think of the best word, like if it's moving enough to be like, oh, that should not, like the law, like if you find a hole in the law and you find, little things that just shouldn't be allowed. Like I do think that like the approach that Sia Price had for that bill, the reconsideration, was kind of like, that doesn't make any sense. We got to change that. So like at the end of the day, it's not always going to be a well thought out thing that was written 10 years ago that keeps getting like it might just be something that you point out and you're like, the law, that ain't right. And then just having a way to kind of talk about that, present it to different legislators, present it to different organizations and see if there are like-minded individuals in that same space. Because I do think that what happened for us was that we were dabbling a lot in earned sentence credits before the second look bill sort of came out, or before we started to bring that in. And we were like, wait a minute, the judge like has nothing to do with this. And then we started hearing about this concept and we started bringing it to the Virginia organizations. And we all had a similar thing we wanted to do in a way and say, hey, that's not right. How can we work together and, present this to some legislators who will patron this bill? So I think that the process itself in concept is easy once you have the right people. And by easy, I mean, it's easy to have an idea and present it to others, but then having to do the work on the back end to work with different organizations and working with legislators and working with, lawyers, working with policy writers, working with, all of the right people that can make the language what it needs to be in order to get passed by both chambers.
Right.
I was going to say, I just wanted to add real quick. One thing that Santia said was, seeing a hole. So not only are we, fighting to bring our loved ones home, we want to make sure that while they're still incarcerated, that, they're being treated fairly. And so we recently sat on a work group to talk about the profiteering, meaning how much our families, like, us, are spending on our loved ones to try and supplement, the lack thereof diets that they have while they're incarcerated. So it was a work study that focused on how much was being spent on commissary, how much was being spent on communication, and that's everything, email and phone calls and video visitation, as well as, the financial fees that they have to incur when they want to get their medical records, or the debit card when they get released. So, we don't just look at bringing our loved ones home. We also want to make sure that the Department of Corrections is doing just by them while they are incarcerated, and not causing financial burdens on the families who want to stay connected and keep in touch with their loved ones, or who want to ensure their loved ones are eating healthy food and not just being given a bunch of meat rock. And I know you know about that. So, we fight for all of that.
Yeah, there's a lot that has to be over, and the meat rock, man. Unfortunately, I know a buddy of mine. He did 20 some years, came home. He's fighting colon cancer for the second time. The diet, medical, mental health, security. I mean, it really does. Education. It doesn't stop. So I think it's very valid that you brought that up. There are advocates. We fight not just to bring you home, but we do understand. Unfortunately, there are some people that maybe won't come home right away, and unfortunately, some people that are going to be there long term. So salute to you guys for that as well. I wanted to ask this question. I kind of know the answer to it. No, I'm going to say I feel I know the answer to it because we touched on it. Not often do judges and anybody that's part of the sentencing effort actually come into prisons, let alone really experience it, and they give out a punishment that they don't really understand, which is something guys always talk about. I think it's valid. I really do. I would feel that way even if I wasn't incarcerated. Do they? I think I might have seen some stuff, but I'm not sure. And maybe you guys have not. I don't know. Do they include guys in on the conversation at times after the fact once they're home? Are the lawmakers, are they coming out there and having are they giving them an opportunity to be heard, maybe in front of a room? Because I might have seen some things, but I'm not sure. Have you heard anything about that?
So when my loved one came out, when Sincere came out, he and his other friend Angel, who were both pardoned and came out on the same day, they went immediately and spoke on it was during the General Assembly time, so they went right and spoke on the General Assembly floor to the Senate about second look, and they met lawmakers as well. Oftentimes we'll have like roundtables like this where they're talking to people about their experiences. Last year when we were pushing the second look, I remember when we were at the House, when it was the criminal subcommittee meeting where our bill got killed, but still, they both spoke. And I remember sitting there watching the Republicans, specifically Delegate Rob Bell, when Angel went up and talked about being a juvenile when he was sentenced to 20 something or longer years. No, more than that, years of prison, and that how many years he served. And when I tell you the room, you could hear a pin drop in the room because they're so used to speaking to loved ones and lawyers and who are advocating about and coming back at them at letting murderers and things like that out. And so here you are with a guy who was sentenced to, he might have been life actually, at 17 years old, who spent 27 years in prison for a murder, and he's talking to you, and they were silent. They didn't have any rebuttals. They couldn't say anything to him. So we try and get people to come and I like the shock value personally, because I think people have in their heads what a murderer is. Right. Like they have in their head what a murderer or what they think a rapist looks like, or what they think whatever the crime may be looks like. Right. But then when my loved one sits and starts talking and you don't even ask him anything yet, or he hasn't told you, you're just having a regular conversations. But then when you learn that he spent 24 years in prison and he's well articulated and intelligent and could speak to a whole view of things, even though he spent 24 years in prison, people say nothing and they can't say anything. So we like to have people who are directly impacted come out and meet people. And we in a bunch of organizations that we work with do that, where we have them come and speak, because it's more valuable than I'm speaking, or Paula or Santia. It's more valuable than when we speak.
Absolutely. I think one of the things, Juanita, that you hit on is testifying at the General Assembly is a great place for formerly incarcerated people to really have their voice be heard. I think that's one way. I also know that there are a lot of, and maybe not a lot, but there are some rallies that happen, especially around the General Assembly. And there is one that's coming up this weekend on Saturday at 1:00, Monroe Park. Virginia Prison Justice Network is having a rally on prison reform, second chances. And I've personally seen, formerly incarcerated people speak. And like, for me, it's just such a beautiful thing to see these people, like talking about their experience, but also just being there in the flesh. Like Juanita said, it's just like, there's just nothing that can replace that. And I know that I'm trying to think of all the opportunities where formerly incarcerated people might be able to speak, but I definitely think that testifying is a huge one.
Yeah, I'd love to tell them how I'm a principal now after doing 17 years. I'd love it. It's because we're human anomalies. Like, we're not supposed to be husbands and fathers, and we're not supposed to come home and be wives and mothers and whatever. We're not supposed to be these people. We're not supposed to be professionals and business owners. And so I think it's just so important, you guys doing what you're doing. And I wanted to ask that question so that people know that are coming home that we're incarcerated. There's something you can do, which is probably the most important part of it all.
Yeah.
Is dispel some myths, kill some rumors by showing them who you are after the fact, and letting them know that if you made parole, it was valid, and you should let some more people come home, and keep going. Keep telling your story.
We were at a family event in November, a second chance work group that we're part of. And there was a former commissioner from Connecticut, and he said the most profound thing that has stuck with me. He says, he got invited to this event that like 200 something formerly incarcerated were participants at. And he says, he had no idea that they were that successful. And I can't remember the whole story, but I do remember this part of what he said. He says, the reason that the COs, the wardens, and those people at the prisons don't see success is because success doesn't return. Meaning, when these individuals get out and they become successful, you don't see them again. The only way that you can sit up and put the term failure on it is if someone gets out and reoffends and returns. Then that's failure. But success never returns. And that's a lot of these individuals who have gotten out and have been given a second chance, whether it be through parole or pardon or, whatever the case may be, the earned sentence credit that just recently got passed, you won't see those individuals because they will be success. But they can only be success if we as a society stop being judgmental and start doing more to provide resources for them to be a success. That means stop throwing our taxpayer dollars into a prison system that's just warehousing individuals, and instead put it in resources like more employment opportunities, more housing opportunities. Let's build up these community centers where young kids can go and have a safe place to hang out at and to do fun educational stuff and not just be, a victim to the streets.
Yeah, I think the plight of the Commonwealth of Virginia is it's leading, or I don't know if it's leading this year, but it's usually top 3 for per capita, prisoners per capita in the leading nation of prisoners per capita. And when you look at what you said, I forgot who said it, lawmakers don't necessarily want to push certain laws, they want to hold their seats. If you're investing in one thing, then you're taking away from something that has funded historically the Commonwealth of Virginia. I'm not even going to say forever. Incarceration had another term back in the day, but it is what it is, man. And I think that's the fight. I think that's why you've got to infiltrate in the right way. I want to use that term in the right way. When I say get involved in the process and work on it from the inside out when you can. You can't always work at it. We do need judges that have had family members that were incarcerated. We do need officers, vice, all these things. So I think it's imperative that we get involved in the process and encourage people to do so. You also mentioned the fact, family members, I want to make sure and touch that. You can send emails and calls, and you can do that every day. And something dawned on me. Majority of the American population, although I know this is seen in other places too, we're on our phone, we're on TikTok, we're on IG, we're on Facebook, we're on YouTube, we're playing some game, we're doing something for at least 5 minutes out of our day, but I know realistically it's probably more like at least an hour out of our day, probably more for some. If you can take 5 minutes every day to send one email, you ain't even got to pick up a phone and make a call if you don't want to. I'm gonna make it real easy for you. You can take 5 minutes of your TikTok time and send an email. That's all I want. I'm really passionate about this, guys, because I might not be in the because I feel like you guys are vets, but I'm learning some things, and it's tiring. It's rewarding. Yeah. It's tiring, and I just wish, and I don't want to be, I just wish if more people got it and understood that a little bit from a lot of people could shift things, man.
But I'm sorry. I keep sorry, but I think the bigger piece of it is that people don't feel empowered, but then also too, people don't feel like their voices are actually heard. People don't, and because they don't feel like their voices are actually heard, they don't feel like it's necessary for them to say anything. Especially I'll say especially in Virginia, because if we think about it, from 1995, to maybe the last 2 years where they stopped where they stopped the death penalty, where they killed that, and then also with the earned sentencing credit. Those are and then with the marijuana legalization of marijuana, and then expungement. If you think about the time frame, we're talking about at least 25 years where nothing has been done. So year after year after year, when you start seeing nothing done, it's hard to all of a sudden get up and say, I want to do. And so I think that's why people don't move. But this is why we encourage people to join something like FAM, for example, because I'll make it easier for you to send an email. You can go on their website and just put your name or where you live in, and it'll pop up where your delegates are or your senators are, and they'll already have a pre-made letter. Just hit send, right? Because most people are going to be like, well, what do I say? But if you keep doing stuff like that through these links, you can get things sent to your senators or to your delegates. But people really need to feel empowered to do something. And I think the tides are turning now. It's like the Titanic, right? It's not a speedboat, so it's not going to turn just like that. But it is slowly shifting. And I think if more people, like you said, get on board, more of us, I'm going to be very specific, more Black and brown people, more Latino people get on board. Because one of the things we were told in this process for the last 2 years, that race makes people uncomfortable, excuse me. So whenever we're doing advocacy and we're talking about race, we bring up how 55% of Virginia's prison is Black and brown people, while 19% of the Virginia population is Black and brown people. That makes people uncomfortable. Well, we said, well, we're uncomfortable that you don't want to take into consideration us. And so I think it's very important that more of us get out there and they see how it impacts us, how our families have been broken for years behind this. How we get these harsher sentences, even though we might have the same crime as Billy. I'm going to say it. So I think it's very important that we get out there and push things. I mean, I'm all for coalition and everything, but I need my Black and brown and Latino people to come out and talk to legislators, because it's our brothers and sisters and uncles and aunties and grandparents that are in prison and they need to come out. But if we don't say anything, and we're not lobbying and we're not emailing or calling. If you don't got email, flip that phone and call. Then they're not going to know. And things don't change tomorrow. That's the other thing. We live in a generation now where people have don't have delayed gratification. You want that microwave thing. That's not how this works. We've been pushing this now for 2 years. I believe in God, and I know that he works miracles and will do things, but I also know this might go another year, that we're not going to stop. So I think people really need to understand that, especially our own.
Yeah, I think one of the things you hit on, Juanita, is the fact that a lot of times they don't see us. So if you go and you look at the demographic makeup of the General Assembly members, what you're going to see is mostly people that don't look like us. And I think that one of the things that's really hard about that is you got to think about who is voting on these laws. There are people in Virginia that are representing you, that have been elected in a seat to represent you, your beliefs, and what you want out of them. You have a right to reach out to them and ask them for what you want. You ask them for the way you want to see the law. And they're not going to hear you, and your voice isn't going to get heard if you're not talking to them about it. And I do think that it's super important to while it is kind of hard to get in touch, like I'd literally be knocking on some door, like it's hard to get in touch with them sometimes, but it really is their duty to talk to you and to listen to you. And you have to think about it that way. And the fact that you've elected them, hopefully if you're voting, you've elected them in a seat, and they should be listening to you. They should represent your issues. They should represent the things that you want to see said in the General Assembly, and how you want them to be voting on these issues when they come up. So it's very important that you make sure that you're seen and heard by these people.
And I want to just say this real quick, because my sisters know I'm very spiritual in my religion. Galatians 6:9 says, "Let us not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time we'll reap a harvest if we do not give up." This is why we cannot stop fighting. No matter how many doors get closed, no matter how many times we're told no, we are going to reap our harvest, which means second look legislation is going to come into Virginia, whether it be this year or next year, but we're not going to stop pushing for it.
And I just want to say, you got to commit to the process. Too many of us are committing to the wrong processes that lead us nowhere. I'm just going to speak Black and brown people specifically. We waste a lot of time. And again, man, it's just time. We have an opportunity where we can network and connect with people without, there's really no hurdle or obstacle. We can connect hundreds of people. There's just so many ways. So again, if you're about change, this is the time. I do get 100% what Juanita's saying as far as joining organizations. If that's your route, do that. But I also go back to saying you can send an email. You'll take 20 minutes to look up a restaurant for Friday night while your loved one's in there eating meat rock. You can take 10 minutes to research and another 3 minutes to write an email. I want to break it down like that. Yes, we need support. Get connected to people, because more will get done. But if you're one of those people that I can't find nobody, even though you listen to this and we done led you to a few places, you can still do it by yourself. Start somewhere. Do anything. Yell in the sky. Say we need anything, man. I'm telling y'all, because we've seen people come home. I've seen people come home just from their loved ones literally networking, making calls, emails, and now they're talking to the parole board, and the next thing he's getting a call to the office. These things happen. Mm-hmm. Believe in the process. It's an uphill battle. That's the reality of the situation. But if you lay down and you don't fight, how long is your loved one going to be in there? That's the reality. What is there to lose other than the time that your loved one is losing right now behind the wall if they're still there? So that's what I wanted to say. You guys got me amped up. I'm ready, man. I'm ready to go do some advocacy work tomorrow. I'm ready to make some more phone calls about people. Hey,
come fly on in and meet us.
Listen, we'll be here.
I'll be up there. I would love an opportunity to speak and really speak. And man, I would love to bring some brothers that I know and a couple of sisters that that make the stuff that I do look like it ain't nothing. And man, because we out here and they need to see the living, breathing examples. But they also need to see the fathers and the mothers and the former addicts that have been clean now for 17 years or whatever it is, 7 months. I don't care. They just need to see the stories to be celebrated so they know that they can bring more people home. I want to say this before I let you guys, close it out. I want to ask you guys not only to make sure you guys include any, information you want to remind people of, places to get in contact with you again, about January 17th, all that, but also a message from each one of you, if you will, whether it's to a loved one of somebody that's incarcerated or a fellow advocate. You guys got me. I needed this because Georgia. I'm by myself down here. It feels like so. I love when I can connect. VA is my second home. That's where I did my time. And I got a lot of people I care about up there, man. But yeah, message on top after the information, man. Just anything, inspiration, motivation, lesson, good jewel, whatever it is you guys got, man.
I want to say hello to Genesis Asiatic, who was formerly incarcerated, friend of mine who created our logo, 4-second look, and also our Sistas in Prison Reform logo. I want to shout him out. He learned all of this while incarcerated, and he came out and has a business. So I want to say hi to him. I want to say hello to my friend Erica Youngblood, who does a podcast as well and has been helping people who are incarcerated, specifically her friend Philip, who's been in there 32 years. She's watching tonight. And I'd like to say hi, shout out to my friend Antonio, who's in Buckingham. And just everyone, be inspired by your loved one or by something for change. And like Chris said, just start somewhere. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be all well put together. Nothing. Just start. Pick one person and reach out to them. And maybe every week, pick another person and reach out to them. And then more importantly, self-care. It's very important. Self-care.
Absolutely. I guess I can quickly go next. Always shout out Q Patterson. He's at Lawrenceville. Hey, babe. No, he's me. But I do think that one of the things, like just to pile on to what Juanita was saying just now, is we need more families. We need more people who are impacted by these issues to step up and, start advocating, because these things aren't going to change until you are showing your face. I think one of the really big things that we want to implement at Lobby Day is we want people to print out pictures of their loved ones to say, this is my loved one, so they cannot escape the faces of the people who are incarcerated. And, ACLU Virginia is happy to help print those out. If you need a printer, like, we are really trying to make sure that the legislators feel this wave of us and seeing the families and the faces behind what's going on there. Because at the end of the day, a lawyer or somebody who's never been impacted by the system personally doesn't feel what we feel, and they need to see what that looks like. They need to feel us in a room in order to really be moved. And I've seen, we've been talking about FAM this whole time, but FAM is really great at teaching storytelling. And when you walk into the room and you start to talk about the facts and the feelings and the smells and the looks and the things that make your loved one a person, that's when those people are like, oh. Because at the end of the day, lawmakers, they make laws about a place that they've never been, a system they've never been a part of, a system that they don't have to see, that they can just turn their phones off, they can turn their TVs off and not see us. And I do think that the way that we change that is we have to get more active, and we have to start to do something, and we have to talk to people, and we have to let our voices be heard. So just gonna shout out brilliancebehindbars.com. Follow us on Twitter. I think you dropped the Twitter on there for Sistas in Prison Reform, which is at the SIP 2021. You can follow me at Your Loved One Q on Twitter. And you can follow Brilliance Behind Bars at Brilliance_bars.
And I, of course, want to shout out my hubby, my love, my partner, my heart, Jerry James at Caroline County in Hanover, Virginia. But, I also want to sit back and just say, as I said in the beginning, if you don't get invited to the table, invite yourself to the table. Make a seat for yourself at the table. Come out, show up. There are over 20,000 individuals that are incarcerated in Virginia Department of Correction. Every time those lawmakers are in that General Assembly, we should see about 20,000 something family members in those rooms, flooding those halls, surrounding that building, because it only takes one representation from every family to sit back and show them that we mean business, and let's make 2023 our business.
Let's do it. Yeah, I snap to that. That sounds like I don't know if you're getting ready to run for political office. That sounds like 2023. Let's make it our business. Let's get it. But seriously though, man, salute to you guys for multiple reasons. Again, like I said, top of the hour, salute to you guys for standing next to yours. And then instead of collateral damage, it's like collateral blessings. You guys start helping people, and then I learned it's like you see somebody else and you're like, dang, you can't not do something, So salute to you guys. If anybody doesn't know, I can almost bet without talking to these three outside of this podcast that they put in a lot of hours outside of working and, I don't know, family, whatever their situation is, all the things they're doing. So again, salute to not just you three, but all the advocates that are putting in work without getting paid, as I like to say. But that's the work that matters. To the returning citizens that are watching this, is I'd rather say than they say the ex-cons and all that. We don't do that, man. We can do this. We can do our part. We can help rewrite the narrative. We can push the conversation. We can do our part. We can meet the advocates in the middle. Juanita's got the hand up. Let's go. Get it in.
I want to thank you on behalf of us for giving us this platform and giving just people in general a platform to come and talk about criminal justice reform and making awareness of the successes of people who are formerly incarcerated or returned citizens. So we thank you as well, because this has been great.
Thank you. This is what I want. This is what this started for. So I was excited about this one. We get into other stuff too. Like this Thursday, I'll segue into that. Precious Rowe will be up with her brand Hood Therapy. She's got her master's in mental health and all that stuff. And she's going to be diving into some of the traumas I faced while incarcerated. I'm going to go first. And then I got some good brothers that's going to go after me and kind of answer some questions about segregation and the effects of different things like that. So I'm excited about that this Thursday at 6 p.m. Anything to gain exposure, traction to the realities of what's going on. Because, man, I'll tell a lot of y'all, if you only really knew. Because your loved one can only express through words, but I can tell you there's no amount of words that can be expressed to tell you what they're going through behind those walls. Yes, there are people, I've said it before, and I'll keep saying that. Yes, there are monsters that exist. Yes, there are people that shouldn't come home. I'll say that. But, man, there's so many people that should be home right now. There's so many people that should have been home. There's so many people that you could have let home. You could have let me go home the next day. That night, I would have never came back. And I know there's so many people just like that, man. So final take is trust the process. If you want the harvest to be great, then you're gonna have to be working in the fields for quite some time. You're gonna have to dig for a minute. We're not trying to pull up one or two pretty plants. We're trying to bring up a whole field of trees and all that stuff. So it takes work. You plant one seed at a time. You cultivate those opportunities. You network with people, and you grow. And then you keep growing and connecting. And I promise you, the same way you guys are chasing followers, I'm gonna be that guy. Same way you guys are chasing followers on social media. I got them too. I'm grateful for them because it gives me, I can talk to people. I get on the news, I tell some people some truth. But the same way you chasing them followers, man, it's time to start chasing freedom for your loved ones. Start chasing change. Start chasing better leaders in this country. Yeah, I'm gonna say it. I ain't gonna go too crazy, y'all. I'm gone, man. I appreciate each and every one of y'all. The SIP. Make sure you guys check in with them. My views don't necessarily reflect theirs, but they're here and they spoke some powerful truths. I'm gonna put their information up one more time before we go. You can follow them or check them out at thesip2021@gmail.com. Any of the information they mentioned, just hit them up on their Gmail right now, and they're gonna get back to you ASAP. At Twitter, make sure you get over there on Twitter, the SIP2021. Get involved. If you're an advocate, if you're somebody that's looking to connect with advocates or want to learn some things, get over there. I'm definitely learning some things. SB 842 second look sentencing remodification is the law that's been discussed. That's what one of the laws that we're fighting for. Erica Youngblood shouting y'all out again. Shout out to Erica Youngblood and her platform, and her loved one who's currently fighting for his freedom as well. I'm shouting everybody out. We going everywhere. Where else we going? Lobby Day, January 17th. You better not forget it. If you in VA, January 17th is a Saturday because I got a birthday party at the Hilton. I got to go. No, it's not Saturday. What is it? What is it?
It's a Tuesday, the day after.
Oh, I got the wrong date. January 6th. I got the wrong days. I'm fired up. That's it. Okay. My fault, y'all. Still, Tuesday, January 17th. If you're in the Commonwealth of Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, any surrounding state, and you can drive or jog or walk, be there. Show up. If you can't be there, just let them know you'd like to be there. Sometimes the motivation and encouragement helps people get more done. Just let people know you're a part of the process. We still getting comments. Erica Youngblood says, what a beautiful live. It really was. Man. And that's it. I appreciate you guys. I'm rambling. Make sure you get in touch with the SIP guys. And that's it. I appreciate y'all, man. And when I come to VA, I would love to help you guys any way I can and speak and tell my story as well.
And I'm gonna fly in.
Hey, we all gonna fly in. I'm be on Frontier and Spirit. Something I don't do something and pray the whole way. All right, y'all, man. Take care till next time. Anybody watching this, peace, love, and blessings. Don't give up on the fight, man, because your loved one would never want them to give up on you. Mm-hmm. I'm telling you, man. Stick in there, connect, keep going. Till next time, peace. General Assembly, let's get involved.